Avoid this mistake if you want peace and growth. We've all been there, trying to hold on to situations, people, and feelings, thinking that if we just put in a little more effort, everything will fall into place. But what if I told you that holding on too tightly could be the very thing stopping you from finding peace and real growth? In today's fast-paced world, we're constantly taught to fix things, to keep going, and to never give up. But sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is walk away, set boundaries, and embrace the unknown. In this video, we're going to explore the essential steps of letting go, the importance of trusting yourself, and why growth lies beyond your comfort zone. If you want to truly transform your life, it's time to break free from the things holding you back. Let's dive into what it really means to let go for inner peace, personal development, and a life aligned with your values. Number 1. The power of walking away, a path to inner peace and growth. There's something magical about those early days when life feels light and you are surrounded by people who bring joy and laughter into your world. We've all had moments where everything seems to align. The conversations are effortless, the energy feels right, and life feels vibrant. It's in these instances that relationships, whether friendships or romantic ones, feel fulfilling. You can almost imagine spending the rest of your life in that happy bubble, thinking everything is perfect. But then, over time, things begin to shift. Maybe it's subtle at first, a disagreement, a few ignored texts, or a growing sense of discomfort. It starts feeling heavy, like you're walking with a stone in your shoe. You begin to realize that this isn't the relationship you once thought it was. Maybe it's toxic, maybe it's draining, or perhaps it just isn't serving your growth anymore. As much as we want every relationship to stay in that perfect place, the reality is that sometimes we must walk away to protect our inner peace. Walking away isn't easy. It's not like flipping a switch. It involves a process of internal struggle, self-doubt, and countless sleepless nights where your mind races back and forth, wondering if leaving is the right decision. But here's where the power lies. Walking away is an act of courage. It's not about giving up. It's about prioritizing your well-being, your mental health, and your emotional growth. It's a conscious choice to remove yourself from environments or people who no longer contribute positively to your life. And this is where it hits home for many of us. Think back to those moments when you knew you should have left a situation, but you stayed, whether out of fear, comfort, or hope that things might change. We've all been there, clinging to relationships or situations that weren't serving us, thinking if we just tried a little harder, things would get better. But in retrospect, how many times did things actually improve? More often than not, the answer is they didn't. Instead, you ended up feeling more drained, more resentful, and more lost. Walking away might sound like defeat, but it's far from it. It's an act of self-love, a decision that empowers you to reclaim control of your life. When you walk away, you're making space for new opportunities, healthier relationships, and personal growth. It's like pruning a plant. The dead leaves must go for new growth to flourish. You're essentially saying, I deserve better, and that's a powerful statement. Now think back to a time when you let go of something or someone that was no longer serving you. Remember that feeling? The lightness, the freedom, the clarity that followed? It's that sense of relief when the weight you've been carrying for so long is finally lifted off your shoulders. Maybe it didn't happen immediately, but over time, you started to see how much stronger you became after walking away. For many of us, the struggle lies in that in-between phase, the space between staying and leaving. We question ourselves, what if I regret it? Or what if I'm making the wrong choice? But here's the truth. Walking away doesn't mean you stop caring about the other person or the situation. It means you're choosing to care about yourself just a little bit more. Walking away creates room for personal growth. It allows you to focus on your own journey, to realign with your values, and to regain a sense of purpose. Often, We get so caught up in trying to fix relationships or situations that we forget about our own needs and desires. Walking away brings you back to center. It reminds you that you are the most important person in your life and that you deserve peace. Imagine a future where you look back at these decisions with pride, knowing that walking away wasn't about abandoning others, but about choosing yourself. There's curiosity in wondering how life unfolds when you let go of what no longer serves you. What new relationships will come into your life? What new opportunities will you discover? When we talk about walking away, it's not just about ending a relationship. It's about embracing a mindset of growth and freedom. It's about realizing that sometimes the only way to move forward is by leaving behind what's holding you back. Number 2, setting boundaries, protecting your energy and emotional well-being. We've all had those moments where we've said yes when we really wanted to say no. Maybe it was a favor for a friend, an extra task at work, or attending a family event you weren't emotionally ready for. It's easy to fall into the habit of putting others' needs ahead of your own because it feels like the right thing to do. After all, you don't want to disappoint anyone, right? In the beginning, it might feel good, helping people, being there for them, being the reliable one. It brings a sense of satisfaction and joy. You feel like you're contributing, like you're making a difference in the lives of others. But slowly, as time goes on, you notice that this constant giving starts to wear you down. You're always available, always on call, and your energy begins to deplete. That's when the cracks start to show. Setting boundaries is one of the most important forms of self-care, yet it's often the hardest to practice. We fear that setting boundaries will make us seem selfish or uncaring, but the truth is, boundaries are essential to protecting our emotional and mental well-being. They allow us to preserve our energy and ensure that we're giving from a place of abundance rather than depletion. Think about a time when you said yes to something you didn't want to do. Maybe it was helping a friend move, staying late at work, or agreeing to plans that didn't excite you. Remember that feeling of dread or exhaustion? And afterward, did you feel resentful or drained? That's what happens when we don't set boundaries. We give away too much of ourselves and end up feeling empty in return. But when you set boundaries, something amazing happens. You begin to take back control of your life. You start to protect your time, your energy, and your mental space. You no longer feel obligated to please everyone, and instead, you focus on what truly matters to you. At first, it might feel uncomfortable. You might feel guilty for saying no, or worry about how others will react. But here's the thing, setting boundaries isn't about pushing people away. It's about creating a healthier dynamic where both parties can thrive. When you set boundaries, you're teaching others how to treat you, and most importantly, you're teaching yourself that your needs matter. Nostalgically, many of us can recall a time when we didn't have these boundaries in place. We were younger, perhaps more eager to please, and saying yes seemed like the easiest way to avoid conflict. Maybe it was with family, friends, or even at work. We took on more than we could handle, and it left us feeling drained, stressed, and overwhelmed. But looking back, we also see how setting those boundaries could have changed things. It could have preserved relationships and even improved our well-being. The beauty of boundaries is that they're fluid. They evolve as you grow and change. The boundaries you set today might look different from the ones you set 5 years ago, and that's okay. What matters is that you're paying attention to your emotional needs and honoring them. Curiosity comes into play when we wonder how our lives might change when we start setting stronger boundaries. How will our relationships improve? Will we feel more energized and focused? Will we finally have the time and space to pursue our passions without feeling weighed down by obligations? Imagine a life where you no longer feel drained by constant demands, where you have the emotional and mental bandwidth to focus on what truly matters. That's the power of setting boundaries. It creates room for joy, peace, and personal growth. Number 3, Closure comes from within, finding peace without external validation. We've all been there, waiting for an apology, an explanation, or some form of closure to make sense of a situation. Whether it's a relationship that ended abruptly or a friendship that drifted apart, the desire for closure can feel overwhelming. We want answers, clarity, and validation. We believe that once we get those things, we'll finally be able to move on. In the early stages of heartbreak or disappointment, it's easy to hold on to hope that the other person will give us the closure we need. Maybe they'll call, send a text, or show up at your doorstep with a heartfelt explanation. We imagine that conversation, where everything makes sense and we can finally put the past behind us with a sense of peace. But the truth is, closure often doesn't come from an external source. It comes from within. Waiting for someone else to provide closure is like waiting for the rain in a drought. It may never come, and even if it does, it rarely provides the sense of peace we're hoping for. Closure isn't about getting answers or validation from someone else. It's about finding peace within yourself, accepting what happened, and allowing yourself to heal on your own terms. It's about releasing the need for an explanation and choosing to move forward despite the lack of one. Nostalgically, we can all recall a time when we waited for closure that never came. Maybe it was a breakup, a falling out with a friend, or a family conflict. We replayed conversations in our minds, hoping for that one moment where everything would click and we'd finally understand why things ended the way they did. But over time, we learned that waiting for closure only prolonged our pain. It kept us stuck in a cycle of rumination, unable to fully heal. Finding closure within yourself is empowering because it puts you back in control of your emotional well. Number 4, growth lies beyond comfort, embracing change and new beginnings. We all have a place we call home, not necessarily a physical location, but a state of comfort where everything feels familiar and safe. It's in this space that we find routine, consistency, and predictability. Life feels stable, and we know what to expect. There's happiness in this sense of comfort, in waking up every day with a clear understanding of what's ahead. In these moments, growth might not even cross our minds because, after all, why change something that feels so good? But eventually, life has a way of shaking things up. Maybe it's a job loss, a relationship ending, or an unexpected move. Suddenly, the comfort zone you've built starts to crumble, and with it comes a wave of uncertainty. Change can feel like an unwelcome guest. It disrupts your flow and forces you to confront the unknown. It's in these moments that growth beckons, though at first it may feel more like chaos than opportunity. Leaving behind what's familiar is hard. Think about a time when you were forced to step outside your comfort zone. Perhaps you moved to a new city, started a new job, or faced a major life decision. At first, it probably felt terrifying. You questioned yourself, am I doing the right thing? What if this doesn't work out? The fear of the unknown often feels paralyzing, and staying where you are can seem much easier. But here's the truth. Real growth happens when you push beyond that fear. Embracing change isn't just about adjusting to new circumstances. It's about welcoming the possibility of growth, even when it's uncomfortable. Think of it like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. During the metamorphosis, the caterpillar doesn't know what's happening. It's a painful and confusing process. But in the end, it emerges as something beautiful and transformed. Nostalgically, many of us look back on moments of change and realize they were turning points in our lives. Maybe it was a breakup that felt devastating at the time, but led you to discover new strengths within yourself. Or maybe it was leaving a job you'd outgrown, only to find a new career path that aligned with your passions. At the time, it may have felt like your world was falling apart, but in hindsight, you see how it was the catalyst for growth. We all grow in different ways, but one thing is universal. Growth lies beyond comfort. If we stay in the same place, with the same people, doing the same things, we might feel safe, but we won't evolve. Life is constantly changing, and part of our journey is learning to adapt, to embrace the new and unfamiliar with open arms. There's also an inherent curiosity in change. What will happen if I take this leap? What new opportunities will come my way? The fear of the unknown is natural, but so is the excitement of possibility. Imagine the version of yourself you might become if you embrace change rather than resist it. What new skills will you acquire? What new relationships will you form? The future is full of potential, but it's only accessible if you're willing to step outside your comfort zone and take a chance on growth. Number 5, the futility of changing others. Focus on your own personal development. When we form deep connections with people, whether friends, family, or romantic partners, it's natural to want the best for them. In the beginning, relationships often feel easy, and we're drawn to others because of shared values, interests, and a mutual sense of understanding. There's happiness in these connections, and we often invest a lot of energy into nurturing them. But over time, as relationships evolve, we start to notice things we'd like to change in the other person. Maybe it's a bad habit, an unhealthy mindset, or a lack of ambition. We see their potential and think, if only they'd change this one thing, they'd be so much happier, or we'd be so much happier. This leads us down a path where we try to fix or improve them, believing that if we can just mold them into a better version of themselves, everything will fall into place. The reality, however, is that trying to change others is often a futile endeavor. People grow and change at their own pace and in their own way. No matter how much we may want to help someone become a better version of themselves, the decision to change must come from within them. This is one of the hardest lessons to learn in relationships. You can't change others. You can only change yourself. Think about a time when you tried to influence someone to change, perhaps a friend who you thought was making poor life choices, or a partner whose behavior frustrated you. You might have spent countless hours offering advice, encouraging them to take a different path, or even arguing about the need for change, and yet despite your best efforts, nothing seemed to change. The frustration of this realization is something we've all experienced, and it often leaves us feeling helpless and exhausted. The futility of changing others is a lesson that forces us to turn inward. Instead of focusing on what others should do, we begin to recognize that our greatest power lies in changing ourselves. Personal development becomes the focus, and we start to ask, how can I improve? How can I be the best version of myself? This shift in perspective is transformative because it takes the burden off of trying to control external circumstances and places the emphasis on your own growth. Nostalgically, many of us can look back on relationships or situations where we tried to change someone. In hindsight, we realize that our efforts were misplaced. The energy we spent trying to fix someone else could have been directed toward our own personal development. If we had focused on our own growth, perhaps we would have been in a better emotional and mental space to navigate those relationships, or even let them go if necessary. The beauty of focusing on yourself is that it creates a ripple effect. When you work on your own personal development, you inspire others to do the same. Instead of trying to force change on someone, your actions become a model of what's possible. People are more likely to change when they see the positive impact that growth has on you. It's a subtle, yet powerful way to influence others. By simply being the best version of yourself. Curiosity enters the equation when we consider what might happen if we fully invest in our own growth rather than trying to change others. How would our relationships evolve? What new opportunities would arise if we focused on our own goals and aspirations? The possibilities are endless when we turn the spotlight inward and commit to our own personal development. Number 6. Trusting your intuition. letting go for a life aligned with your values. In the hustle and bustle of everyday life, it's easy to get swept up in the opinions, expectations, and advice of others. From a young age, we're taught to seek validation, whether it's from parents, teachers, or society at large. This constant external feedback shapes the way we think, the choices we make, and the path we follow. In the beginning, it feels comforting to have guidance. There's a sense of happiness in knowing that others approve of your decisions. But as we grow older, we start to notice that not all of this external advice aligns with who we truly are. Maybe you felt a nagging sense of discomfort after making a choice that didn't quite feel right, even though it was what others expected of you. Or perhaps you found yourself in situations where you ignored your gut feeling, only to realize later that your intuition had been right all along. Intuition is that quiet voice inside of you that knows what's best for you, even when the world around you is telling you otherwise. It's the feeling you get when something just doesn't sit right, or when an opportunity feels like it was meant for you. Trusting your intuition is one of the most empowering things you can do because it allows you to live a life that's aligned with your values, rather than trying to meet the expectations of others. Think back to a time when you ignored your intuition. Maybe it was in a relationship, a job, or a major life decision. At the time, you probably rationalized your choices, convincing yourself that it was the right thing to do because it's what everyone else expected. But deep down, there was that little voice, that gut feeling that you brushed aside. And as time passed, you realized that your intuition had been trying to guide you all along. Nostalgia often brings us back to moments where we wish we had listened to our intuition sooner. It's easy to look back with the wisdom of hindsight and see how things might have been different. But those experiences also serve as valuable lessons. They teach us to trust ourselves more deeply the next time. Trusting your intuition requires letting go of the need for external validation. It means learning to be comfortable with the uncertainty that comes with making decisions based solely on what feels right for you. This can be challenging, especially when the people around you have strong opinions about what you should do. But living a life that's true to you is far more fulfilling than living a life based on someone else's expectations. There's curiosity in wondering where your intuition might lead you if you fully trusted it. What new paths might open up? What opportunities might you discover? Trusting your intuition is like unlocking a door to a life that's more authentic, more aligned with your values, and more fulfilling than you could have imagined. Imagine a future where every decision you make is rooted in your own inner wisdom, rather than the noise of the outside world. That's the power of trusting your intuition. It guides you toward a life that's truly yours. As we wrap up, remember that letting go isn't a sign of weakness. It's a powerful move toward growth, peace, and self-discovery. Walking away from toxic situations, setting firm boundaries, and trusting your inner voice are all steps that lead to a more fulfilled, aligned life. It's not always easy, but it's a journey that's worth taking. You're choosing yourself, your peace, and your future. Drop A in the comments if you've made it this far, showing you're part of the rare 0.01% who actually finish what they start. If you're truly committed to transforming your life and becoming the best version of yourself, make sure to join our amazing community by hitting that subscribe button. You're already on the path. Let's keep moving forward together.